Friends, welcome to a new product video. If it's your first time tuning in, hi, I'm Alicia. I love to buy new makeup. However, I also like to dive back in and revisit products that I recently purchased, combining them with other products in my collection. But today I wanted to run through a few I picked up from Sephora and express my excitement because I had shared these products in a recent live. If you want to check that out, I'll make sure to link the live video down below in the description box. Quickly going over what I purchased, I snagged a sample of the Anastasia Beverly Hills foundation. Let me get the official name of it. I'm sorry. The Impeccable Blurring Second Skin Matte Foundation. I forgot when this foundation released. It was, I think, recent, and I snagged the sample because I'm not a believer, although I am fully aware of the position that I am, to purchase an entire bottle of foundation that I am unsure of in terms of color, oxidation, wear, and the texture. So we just snagged the sample. The photos on the thumbnail because technically it's the foundation. I just didn't get the entire bottle. The Charlotte Tilbury Beautifying Trends 9-pan eyeshadow palette, which has garnered a little bit of controversy because of the drugstore aesthetic paired with a luxury price tag. We'll get into that in a minute. Another YSL Make Me Blush powder single in Nude Lavalliere 44. I also have Baby Doll and Peachy Nude and Nude Lavalliere. Nude Lavalliere, spoiler alert, is a beautiful shade. It's a satin finish, so it has a little pearl in the powder, but I was impressed by how well it blended with a small blush brush, which I will use today just to demonstrate those characteristics. And lastly, I picked up another Kulfi lip oil stain, but in the shade Rose. Kulfi lip oil products are some of my most favorite lip products from last year, 2024, and I saw that they added 3 new shades to their lineup. One of you had mentioned you purchased Fig, which is like a mauve type of a shade, and now I need it. I picked up Rose. I have Caramel and Tamarind. Adore this product, and Rose, as you will see momentarily, is basically my lips but better, shinier, and rosier. So now that we run through the gamut of what I purchased, it's time to get into the nitty gritty for each, and that means it's time for you to come in a little closer. That's enough. It's time for the house pin. If I could find it, my God. Before we apply this foundation, I wanted to quickly cover what to expect. A medium to full coverage velvet matte foundation with a non-comedogenic formula that perfects skin with a blurring second skin finish up to 12 hours. We have a matte finish, the texture is liquid, and some highlights. Hyaluronic acid, Bixa Orellana blurs pores and imperfections, and phytoglycogen delivers youthful radiant skin. I purchased the shade 3N, described for light to medium skin with neutral undertones. If you're around my skin shade, you might have thought 4N would have been a match, and I swatched that in store, medium skin with neutral undertones, but it was actually a little deep for me. And maybe I should have swatched it on my shoulder, but I had my jacket on, or more specifically my coat on at the time because it was cold. Would have maybe gotten away with 4N, but let's quickly check out 3N. I have the little jar here. For context, I am dry skinned, so it will be interesting to see how this foundation performs on me, but we're looking at the consistency here. It's not super liquidy, but not super tight and creamy either. And here is a swatch, which I will let hang out for a little bit because I remember when swatching before that it did oxidize a touch, which validated my choice in not grabbing the 4N sample, which I could have asked for sure. I don't think Sephora has a cap on how many samples you can request, but I didn't want to go crazy, you know what I mean? We got a lot of blemishes here to cover today. Let's slap on some moisturizer. This is the CeraVe moisturizer. The moisturizing cream specifically is on the richer side, but because I don't apply moisturizer on the regular, because I am a skincare minimalist, I guess you can say, not completely skin sobering, but I treat moisturizer like I treat makeup. I remove everything at the end of day. I have to be careful with matte foundations because they could appear cakey if I apply too much. With that said, I will warm up this foundation on the back of my hand first, just to kind of prep it. And that, again, that's the texture that we're looking at. And I'm letting this swatch sit for a bit just so we can catch any color change. I'm going in with my BK Beauty 116 brush, working that product in, and I will like to buff. Oh, doesn't look bad already. All right, all right. Again, I wanted to apply it in this manner and not pounce it in because I feared it would have sat on my skin because it is that velvety matte texture, and I rather work it in and trust its medium to full coverage abilities. I didn't think I needed to pounce it on, you know what I mean? So here are the close-up shots of our application. I do like how my skin appears, and I'm happy that I didn't apply a ton, that I buffed it in that circular fashion. I can see now, especially side by side with foundation on and just bare skin, I could have probably gotten away with 4N. I could have. And to take a look at this swatch, it didn't oxidize too much. I'll do a fresh swatch next to it just so you can see. So the color changes a little bit. It appears surprisingly a little more peach on the first swatch, and then it dries down to an actual neutral undertone, which is what I'm getting here. Now the trade-off with that is dead on skin matches with a neutral undertone on my complexion could appear a little dull, and maybe why I felt 4N would have been a better choice. The problem is, with the darker shade and the same undertone, it could appear muddy. So that's why I was weary of it. And yes, there was 3W and I think 3WO for warm olive, if that's an indication for that undertone label. I'm not entirely sure. And this is how it dries down on the back of my hand. It still moves, but I'm trying to pick up a little bit more, but I think I need a fresh serving of foundation for the other side. I do like it. It's fragrance free. It doesn't have a strange scent to it like a no product scent, which I can't stand with some products. And again, I just have to be careful with how much I apply. I think if you're conservative with the amount you place on the skin, it will not look heavy and textured, but I think it could for sure with a velvet finish foundation. Definitely, if you pounce on too much or if you're not using a sponge, you could risk it looking heavy on the skin just based off this application. And also based off on how I see it dry down on the back of my hand and just, you know, that neutral undertone. I mean, this is neutral. Now I'm addressing the blemishes, right? And purposefully will use a smaller brush in order to tackle the pigmentation without laying down too much product. I don't want it to appear heavy, but sometimes you just have to allow the blemishes to show through a touch, right? Like this one here, until it scabs off, I mean, it's just gonna be there. It's gonna be the third eye for the entire week, which I'm fine with because we still have this portion of my face to judge the texture with and all that, but more than happy to pounce a little more here. And because it's raised, you will inevitably see something is on my forehead, but at least the color isn't as red. And I don't want to apply too much foundation because then it will just look too textured, you know what I mean? And now taking 116 to work over those portions that I applied. Now I wanted to revisit the 5-point lift from Isamaya's core collection. If you want to check out my first impressions review, I'll make sure to link that video down below. Also, if you wanted to watch my mix and match video where I revisited the products from core collection and mixed it with other of my favorites, and I mixed the 5-point lift with Lisa skin tint and I love the combination. But for this demo, I think I would like to apply Natasha Denona's Hy-Glam in R5 with Isamaya's 5-point in medium fair because the 5-point is quite peachy. So here's the medium fair from Isamaya's concealer, and this is R5 from Natasha Denona. So you can see off the bat. we got some mixing to do. And just to take note of the texture here, I do like the ABH consistency. It does leave behind a velvet matte finish. I don't detect any sheen. I like how it covers my blemishes without appearing too heavy. Mixing these two together and naturally will pick up some of the foundation underneath. Okay, I think that adjusted the R5 color quite nicely. I probably picked up a little too much, so with that said, I'll use my finger to complete the blend and toss between brush and finger application to finesse it. Oh, I like that a lot. And I have to say, although I was disappointed in the 5-point shade and also its ability to cover solo, because the 5-point lift is a light to medium coverage type of a product. I don't think it's meant to completely even out discoloration under the eyes or on the face. So it fails in that department, but because of the ingredient profile in the 5-point product, the consistency is quite fluid and I think assists other concealers in being a little more skin-like in finish. So that's why I love to apply, or rather combine, the 5-point with a lot of my complexion products, ranging from concealer to tints to even foundation, just to adjust the color if I need, but also to give the concealer a little bit of that sheen natural finish on the blend. All right, looking good. I love what's happening so far. We gotta put on some brows though, because these guys are killing me. Brows are on. Now I wanted to show the Kulfi lip oil stain in Rose. There's a little shine left behind on the first application, and during that first stage, it will remain glossy for a bit, but will eventually dry down to a more stained finish with not as much shine, but the color is still left behind, and it's still comfortable. My lips feel soft. They don't feel as soft as they did when I first applied the product, but I adore the rose shade. It's subdued. It's not super pink. It's just pink enough, again, to enhance my natural lip color. And I'll quickly show what rose looks like compared to caramel. Caramel definitely is giving you more of a brown beige shade in terms of the actual color. So again, this is the rose and this is caramel. Caramel I adore. I think I included it in my current lip product favorites for autumn winter, and rose quickly has made it to that list. But now I wanted to move in to this blush because my goodness, Nude Lavalliere is just extraordinary. So if you're not familiar with the YSL Make Me Blush singles, they come in 2 finishes, satin and matte. And I don't recall what the ratio is, but the consistency is outrageously beautiful, easy to blend on the skin. And I have to demonstrate the application with Sonia's Worker L. This is from her Fundamental series that was redesigned back when she had released her first Fundamental set years ago. And I didn't anticipate purchasing new makeup over the weekend. I was at Bay's and I only brought this brush in case I wanted to tap some setting powder under the eyes. But lo and behold, we bought blush, and this little guy deposits and blends blush beautifully despite its smaller brush head size. And I'll show you why. And yes, a testament to how beautiful and smooth this texture is. Even though the brush is small, because it has great mobility across the skin, it's able to spread the product evenly across a wider region of my cheek area. And also I noticed because of the smaller brush, it has the ability also to evenly disperse the pearl pigments in the product. There's a little dead skin there, so unfortunately the pearl is grabbing that skin texture. But what I like about the smaller brush is that I can again better maneuver the pearl across my skin, whereas sometimes with a satin finish blush and a bigger brush, if I just tap on, the pearl will just settle on those spaces and not evenly distribute. Where with a brush like this, or even a medium-sized brush, the buffing action just smooths out the application. And look at this color. Okay, look at this side of my face. It just appears brighter, flushed, and paired with the Kulfi. I know, you can't help Oh my gosh. I also wanted to quickly swatch the liquid version of Nude Lavalliere next to the powder formula. This takes on more of a heavier pink hue compared to the powder. The powder shade is described to be a dusty muted rose, and that's exactly what it gives. I love muted roses on my complexion because they don't warrant more makeup. They're subtle enough to provide flush and just liveliness to my face without appearing too bright. Easy to wear. This, however, I would say easy to wear, but I can quickly show you what that looks like next to its powder counterpart. And I'll dot 3 because, you know, I should have probably just done 2 because a little goes a long way. Taking Sonia's mini buffer and now carefully taking it from the apples of my cheeks and moving it upward. You can see that the Nude Lavalliere shade in the liquid formula has a little bit more of like a neutral pink lean versus a muted rose. And it also does not possess pearl. This is a matte liquid. I believe, just based off the swatch, I couldn't detect any pearl in the formula, also with how it looks on my skin, but I like that natural finish it leaves behind. It leaves behind a little bit of a sheen there where I think is a perfect setup for a powder highlight, a little bit of zhuzh, if you will, and provides a little bit of that natural sheen finish if you decide not to apply an exclusive highlighter on your cheekbones. But you can see the difference between the two, how the powder version definitely has more of a mute to it, like it's a little more desaturated, but in the rose category, and Nude Lavalliere in the liquid formula is more of a neutral pink, neutral rose. What do you think down below if you see something different for where you are? And I'm more than happy to combine both. We'll still take my Sonia brush and I'll place it more inwards here inside of the cheek area, and then we'll bring it up, kind of caressing the cheekbone area, not entirely, but just capitalizing on the pearl in the powder formula to give off a little bit of highlight. The powder applies smoothly on top of its liquid counterpart. It did not disrupt the blend. It does not appear uneven or patchy. I am pleased with this combination and just pleased with Nude Lavalliere. It was between Nude Lavalliere, Restless Rose, and Spicy Berry. And I just wanted to touch on a dialogue that I went through with myself when in Sephora, because I ran to Spicy Berry since that was the first shade that sold out, and I think currently still sold out on Sephora.com. The FOMO grabbed me by the neck and I said, I need the shade because it's always sold out. And then I saw that they had the others, and I asked one of the employees if there were any other available shades in the drawer, and she helped me grab Restless Rose and Nude Lavalliere. I looked in my basket and I'm like, Alicia, you're not walking out of here with 3 blushes at $45 a pop. You already have 2. Calm down. I know you're excited. Pick one. Pick one, because you know there's a sale coming, or if there's another opportunity besides the Sephora sales event in the spring that you can have in grabbing these on a discounted price, just wait. So that's what I did. I decided to pick up Nude Lavalliere because I love the shade, and I thought it would be interesting to compare it to, again, its liquid counterpart from YSL, same brand. I love the combination. I love the shade. Happy that I chose this one. And now moving in to this palette. I expressed the reason why I thought Charlotte Tilbury, the brand, went with this packaging choice, because when I saw these palettes for the first time in store, they definitely appear more impressive in person than they do online. Online is hard to detect those distinguishing characteristics in a palette that appears to look like something you can buy from a drugstore. But when I held this palette in my hand, it does feel heavier a little bit so than a typically constructed 9-pan plastic palette like from Maybelline, or what I have a photo here of LA Girl. I walked into my local CVS and I'm like, let me see if the weight is different. And just as I had assumed, the LA Girl palette is extremely light, and I think the Charlotte Tilbury brand used a more expensive type of plastic. I'm not saying that you should pay or be okay paying $60 for more expensive plastic, but I do believe there is a hierarchy in materials, right? There's better quality cashmere, better quality silk, and it's the same thing with plastic. There are types of plastic out there that are heavier, more durable, and just higher quality overall, and I think Charlotte Tilbury used the higher quality plastic, and the reason why they went with the clear cover is to display the shadows, because the shadows themselves are the seller for this release, to showcase the different color stories that I think are well done. Many of you had said that the denim color story, the blue palette, is even more gorgeous in person and in action. The emerald palette is the one I actually had my eye on, but unfortunately the Sephora I visited didn't have that one in store. They had super neutral, sensual sunset, which likens to Natasha Denota's bronze, and the pink one, which I also say is Natasha Denota's love palette. I think what's left is the lilac palette and the denim palette with all the blues. I decided to pick super neutral because when I swatched this shade right here, I wasn't ready. I was quite surprised at how much sparkle and shine was in this shadow. Back to my original point that I veered off because I got distracted, my apologies, is that I think the brand wanted to showcase the shadows themselves to be the main selling point for this collection, especially because of how the color stories are curated. They speak for themselves, and while I understand that Charlotte Tilbury has spent time in a more elaborate compact designs, for instance, you have, I think, the holiday, I'm not entirely sure, I could have sworn I placed labels on these, but you have the bejeweled eyes to hypnotize, the starry eyes to hypnotize, where you have like the silver flakes, and here you have the silver glitter. This is her beautifying face palette, where you have like this iridescent finish to the compact. What's inside? Because I forgot. See, this is why I gotta buy so much new makeup. And here are the original luxury palette color-coded eyeshadows. This is what I first encountered from Charlotte Tilbury in terms of eyeshadow. This is the Golden Goddess palette, but compared to the Beautifying Eye Trends, you can see that this is a little more luxe looking. These retail for $60, by the way. That's why there's a lot of hoopla about it. But I can only imagine if the brand decided to design the compact in a way that reflected what's inside, it would have probably cost upwards of $70 to $75 if they wanted to do like an iridescent finish of these shades and then the emeralds and then the blues and the lilacs. Like that would have gone a little crazy with the price tag. But if they wanted to be a little more economical and say, hey, I don't want the consumer to pay for more packaging design choices, I just want them to pay for what's inside, I get that entirely. And I understand the other side of the argument where people purchase luxury because of the packaging. They want a better looking compact on their vanity, and they want just that more luxurious feeling experience when using their product. I get both sides of the argument 100%, but I'm happy to report that what's inside this $60 drugstore looking eyeshadow palette are phenomenal shadows. I tried them on in my live, and I'll be happy to swatch them here freshly for you. We got 2 diamond dimensions, 1 crystal chrome, and all the rest are the matte silk formula and made in Italy. Here's the first diamond dimension shadow. Okay, you tell me, does that not look like crushed disco ball fairy dust? Here's the beige matte shade, this first light taupe, medium taupe. It's kind of hard to tell between these two, actually. I guess this one has like a little more mauve in it. I can't quite tell. Crystal chrome formula, beautiful bronze, and look at the sparkle here, even with the metallic base. Absolutely gorgeous. And here what appears to be like a bark brown taupe, what appears to be what looks like like a charcoal actually. Now we have the slate gray with a little bit of a blue tinge to it. What appears to be a more brown leaning taupe. Definitely a little more neutral leaning than the previous two here. And our last Diamond Dimension shade, the first one I swatched, there is a lot of pearl in here. I don't know if you can see, but my goodness, I was just floored when I swatched these shadows in store. Again, you saw I have a few Charlotte Tilbury products. I'm not the most well-versed YouTube in Charlotte Tilbury land. You can visit other beauty influencers for more in-depth details on the collection, on the brand. But just from swatching as much shadow as I do in this position, these shadows are great. I mean, come on, the shine is incredible, and I can only imagine how beautiful the denim and emerald one is. I want them. But we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait, Alicia, because let's apply some primer. This is Pat's Lid Primer. I think I'm running low. I gotta either repurchase this or try another primer. I wanted to start off with the slate gray because I do consider this color to be a neutral, which I think it a fitting choice to be included in this palette. And I think also using like the diamond shade as the overlay moment would be beautiful. And the matte silk formula swatched well on the arm, but it's time to see how they perform on the eyes. And not too bad. I'm using my Refer Shoto eye brushes that have a wispy end to the design. It's a little patchy here on the outer corner, which, okay, don't mind. Because if I'm going to cover that up with the Diamond Dimension, or what I can do is take a smaller brush and concentrate the color more on the outer V to even out that application. I'll also carry that same shadow here under the lash line just to smoke it out. That's pretty. I like that a lot. Now to go in with this Diamond Dimension color that actually has blue pearl in there, especially if you pair it with the gray. The gray, I feel, will bring that blue a little more forward. This is like shiny. Okay, it's a sparkly. I'm using a smaller brush to clean up the edges here, and actually will use the same shade but to apply that on the inner corner for highlight. And now I want to use the darker charcoal shade here as a lash line moment and just kind of stamp it along for a little more definition. I don't think I want to take it beyond my lash line. I just want to take it right to the edge. For the other side, we can now do more of the taupey taupe, but you know what I want to do? I want to see how what's called the crystal chrome in action, but it be the main stage shade. I'm taking a larger brush. This is my Surratt brush, by the way. I think this might be like it has a mirror. It might be one of the complexion brushes, but I use it for shadow because of its incredible pickup and also its ability to lightly blend the edges. But this bronze shade, as a one and done moment, like you can see immediately how easy it is to achieve this look. I'm just being careful with the edges here because I picked up quite a bit of shadow and I don't want it to run away from me. So that's why I'm using light flick out motions here along the edges of my crease to control the blend. And then I'll take a different brush. I'll take the small Shoto brush I used for this eye without additional shadow and lightly blend the edges of that crystal chrome shade to create a diffused look to the lids. And already, look at that. Look at the shine on this. It's insane. This reminds me of that bronze shade in Izamea's Wildstar palette, but I think this has a little more sparkle. And the bronze brocade cream shadow from Kulfi, that has, I think, a more gold leaning undertone to it. But I wanted to follow up with one of the matte shadows. The lighter taupe shade, I think, will be interesting to see paired with this bronze. And I'm not applying a lot, just a touch, like just a touch of the edges. And why I love this brush so much, because of the more flexible brush tip, it allows for a more airbrush look to the blend and not overwhelm the skin with shadow. I'll take that same matte and dust it here on the lower lash line. And for the inner corner, I guess that will be my critique, because for highlight, I will have to dive into this shade, which although has more of a base than the Icy Overlay Diamond shade, can still serve as a highlight. It just won't pick up as much, I guess. Let's see here. Let me grab my smaller brush I used for this side. And again, using the second Diamond Dimension shade, even though it has a kind of like a bronzy base, I'm relying on the sparkly Arclies to serve as my highlight. And I think we were able to do that. It doesn't look too dark on the inner corner. And if I wanted, I could tap a little bit on the center of that chrome crystal, and look how much dimension that brought forward on the lid. I am very happy with this palette. I know it looks like from LA Girl just at first glance, okay, and you see the price tag, you're like, what is happening? The shadows are delivering. And the reason I chose Super Neutral is because I thought it was one of the more versatile offerings from the 6, and I wanted something that I could rely on for just an everyday smoky eye. This is like Natasha Denona's Glam, but sized down and more sparkly, because the metallic shadows in Glam don't have this sparkle factor. Okay, you'll have to go into I Need a Nude for her wet effect formula, or her sparkled dual whatever foiled chrome formulas that really give you the twinkle inkle. Like, I mean, this is insane. But the midi glam, you just have that metallic sheen finish that has shine, but doesn't have the same twinkle sparkle factor as these shadows here. And let's see if we could just do a little more smoking out. Do we want to experiment with, let's see, maybe this shade could give us, I'm gonna tap it on the outer V gently, okay, to see if that will offer any distinction, right? And I know I'm going on top of a textured shadow. That's not bad. It gave a little bit of smoke, but probably not at the degree I would like to see. I will have to pair this shade with like a lighter taupe shade, or even this diamond shade I applied here on the inner corner. I think there's too strong of a bronze base from the chrome shadow. But what we'll do now is apply some lashes, and I'll be right back. And here are the close-up shots with my new Sephora products that I purchased over the weekend. I am pleased with these purchases, and I'm happy that I didn't buy all 3 YSL blushes. I'm happy that I gave the Charlotte Tilbury palette a chance. I'm thrilled with another color from the Kulfi lip oil line, and happy that I snagged a sample of the Anastasia Beverly Hills foundation. Will I buy an entire bottle? I will have to finish the sample completely, just wearing it with different types of makeup. And unfortunately, this isn't a foundation as easygoing as a tint. I would need to bring along a brush just to ensure the blend that I wish to have from this type of a foundation, right? Because I do love to use fingers to apply tints. It's just more easygoing. But if I want more coverage, but also to ensure that the skin doesn't appear made up. And by the end of the video, the foundation remained intact. Also with the cheek area, there is no unevenness to shout out. And I like, even though my little mound here looks textured, it doesn't have a lot of gathering in my forehead, because I made sure to be careful with the amount of foundation I applied on this area. And because I'm already on the drier side and the foundation finish is matte, I didn't feel the need to powder. I didn't apply any powder here under my eyes, despite how emollient the 5-point concealer is. I do have a little bit of fallout from the matte shadows in the Charlotte Tilbury palette, and that was to be expected because they're actually quite soft. I can see if maybe you can detect a little bit of that powder texture, right? So if you pick up too much on your brush, just make sure you tap off the excess first before going in on the eyes. But no streaks were left behind, no discoloration from that, right? So I'm happy with the concealer combination, thrilled with these eyeshadows. I know these are shades that I have, okay? I understand that completely. I like the fact that I have all these taupey neutral shades alongside their dazzling diamond counterparts in one palette. And this is super easy to pull off a glamorous eye look with, be it on the softer side or the heavier glam red carpet side. And just pleasantly surprised by how well these shadows perform. And I can't even imagine how beautiful the emerald one will be in action and the denim one. Out of the 6, I think I'll pick up those 2, right? The other ones are gorgeous, but I would wait, and I understand they're limited. I get it. That's why I had a little bit of FOMO in store, because Juju here, one of our friends, said, listen, this is limited edition, Alicia. I know what you're saying, but just keep that in mind. So I heard her while in store. That's why I picked up Super Neutral. The blush is, I love the blush. I have to say though, I might be leaning a little more towards the Nude Lavalliere color in the liquid form versus the powder form. The powder form with its muted coloring has a little more of a cooler look to my complexion, which isn't bad. But if you prefer more of a neutral, slightly more leaning undertone from the Nude Lavalliere shade, you might want to consider the liquid version over the powder one. Just saying. Also, Restless Rose kind of leans here more in this spectrum. It's not as vibrant as this, but it definitely has more of like that warmer rose look to the skin when I swatched it. And that's next on the list. That and Berry Bang. Berry Bang was like a warm fuchsia. It was just outrageous. So I can't wait to see that in action, hopefully in the future if it ever goes on sale or when Sephora holds their next sales event. And the Kulfi lip oil, I just wanted to touch on. You see how it's not as shiny as it started when I first applied the product, but the lips still have like a soft blurring effect to them, and the rose color stayed behind. And my lips feel fairly soft despite the fact that the shine has disappeared, and I'm fine with that. This is why I love the lip color, because it's so easygoing. It's not quite, or no, I would put it in the balm category, but the feel and experience of it, I think, exceeds a balm in terms of how unique it is, the formula, and just how it feels on the lips. And that is it, family. Let me know if you have any of these products down below. I'm sure especially if you bought them before I did and you've used them for a few weeks, what you think about them still. Have you changed your mind? Have expectations been met? Have they been sabotaged? And if you made it this far, especially if you're a newcomer, hey, make sure you press that thumbs up. It does help the YouTube algorithm let it know I'm worth watching and can still continue to watch. And also consider subscribing. Click that notification bell, because I'll be back with more cocktails and updates with these new products. And if you want to check out the video where I cocktail my newly purchased Isabella products with old favorites, you could click that video here. I'll see you in that one down in the comments and on here next time.